Lisa Grant stood at the center of the massive observation deck and felt the weight of 300 alien eyes watching her every move. The Galactic Council station hung in space like a giant crystal above Earth, its walls made of transparent materials that let everyone see the blue planet spinning slowly below. Today was the day that would decide humanity's future among the stars. She wore her best diplomatic uniform, dark blue with silver trim that caught the light from distant suns. Her hair was pulled back in a neat style that the cultural advisors said would appear professional to most alien species. Everything about her appearance had been carefully planned over months of preparation. Behind her stood the rest of the human delegation. There was Dr. Paul Watson, the lead scientist who would explain human technology. Next to him was Colonel Betty Ross, the military representative who had practiced her most peaceful expressions in front of mirrors for weeks. Amy Collins, Lisa's assistant, held a tablet with all their prepared responses to possible questions. The amphitheater around them curved upward in rows upon rows of seats filled with creatures from across the galaxy. Some looked almost human, but with different colored skin or extra arms. Others were so alien that Lisa had to study her briefing materials just to figure out which end was their head. All of them watched the humans with the same expression of polite interest. At the highest point of the amphitheater sat the council leadership. Chairman Vordash looked like a tall lizard wearing robes that seemed to be made of liquid metal. His voice came through the translation devices as smooth and formal. Council member Zixthara from the hegemony had 6 arms and skin that changed colors when she spoke. The tribunal representative was a floating ball of light that somehow managed to look skeptical. Lisa had practiced this speech so many times that she could recite it in her sleep. Every word had been chosen carefully by teams of linguists and diplomats. Nothing could go wrong if they just stuck to the plan. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Lisa began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's sound system. Humanity comes before you today not as conquerors or rivals, but as students eager to learn from the wisdom of older civilizations. She gestured toward the viewing wall where Earth rotated peacefully. Our world has known war, yes, but we have learned from our mistakes. We have spent the last century building a global society based on cooperation, scientific advancement, and peaceful exploration. The alien delegates nodded, and what their briefing said were signs of approval. Lisa felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. So far, everything was going exactly as planned. Dr. Watson stepped forward when Lisa signaled him. He activated a holographic display showing human achievements in medicine, agriculture, and space technology. We have eliminated most diseases on our world, he said in his careful, measured tone. We have learned to feed our entire population without damaging our environment. Our space program focuses on exploration and scientific research rather than military expansion. The hologram showed human doctors helping patients, farmers growing food in vertical gardens, and astronauts conducting peaceful research on space stations. Everything looked clean, organized, and completely non-threatening. Colonel Ross spoke next about human military forces. She explained that Earth's defenses were purely for protection against asteroids and other space hazards. She showed images of human ships that looked more like research vessels than warships. The weapon systems she mentioned seemed designed only for clearing space debris. Our military exists to serve our people through rescue operations, disaster relief, and scientific support, she said with a straight face. We believe that force should only be used as an absolute last resort. Lisa watched the alien faces and saw exactly what she had hoped to see. They looked relieved. Most species that applied to join the Galactic Federation were aggressive and warlike. The Council had grown tired of dealing with civilizations that solved every problem by shooting at it. Zixthara leaned forward in her seat, her skin shifting to what the briefing said was a pleased yellow color. She spoke into her translator, and her words came out as, "These humans appear to be remarkably civilized. Their approach to problem-solving seems very mature." Other council members murmured their agreement. The floating tribunal representative pulsed with what Lisa hoped was approval. Even Chairman Verdash nodded his lizard head in what looked like satisfaction. The presentation continued for 2 hours. Amy Collins showed examples of human art and music that emphasized beauty and harmony. Dr. Watson explained human philosophy and ethics, focusing on concepts like universal rights and peaceful coexistence. Colonel Ross discussed human exploration plans that involved studying planets rather than conquering them. Everything was perfect. The months of preparation were paying off. Lisa could see in the aliens' faces that they were impressed by this. Peaceful, reasonable species from the small blue planet outside the great windows. Human ships maintained perfect formations as they escorted visiting alien delegates around Earth's solar system. Captain Jake Morrison commanded the escort fleet from his ship, making sure every vessel stayed exactly where the flight plan said it should be. The human ships moved like they were part of a parade, slow and predictable and completely unthreatening. Lisa was just beginning to think they might actually pull this off when Amy Collins' tablet began flashing with an urgent message. Amy's face went pale as she read the text. She walked quickly to Lisa's side and whispered something in her ear. The message was from deep space sensors on the edge of the solar system. A large fleet of unknown ships had just appeared and was heading toward the inner planets at high speed. The computer had identified them as HFY raiders, a species known for attacking and enslaving entire worlds. Lisa felt her stomach drop, but she kept her diplomatic smile in place. The council members had noticed Amy's message and were leaning forward with interest. This was not part of the planned presentation. Chairman Verdash spoke into the silence. Ambassador Grant, it appears your world has received some unexpected visitors. Perhaps this would be an excellent opportunity for us to observe how humanity handles a crisis situation. Lisa looked at the expectant faces around her and realized that everything was about to change. The careful months of preparation, the peaceful presentations, the image of humanity as a civilized species that followed rules and avoided conflict, all of it was about to be tested. She walked to the communication console at the center of the platform and opened a channel to Jake's fleet. Her finger hovered over the transmission button as she looked at the hundreds of alien representatives waiting to see what humans would do when faced with real danger. This was the moment that would define humanity's relationship with the galaxy forever. The communication console hummed softly as Lisa activated the channel to Jake's fleet. Around her, the council chamber had gone completely silent. Every alien representative leaned forward in their seats, waiting to see how these supposedly peaceful humans would react to a real threat. Chairman Verdash gestured toward the main viewing screen, which now showed the approaching HFY fleet as red dots against the black of space. The HFY Confederation, he announced to the assembly, his translated voice carrying what might have been satisfaction. 312 warships, all heavily armed. They have destroyed 17 civilizations in the past 50 years. Lisa felt Dr. Watson shift nervously behind her. Colonel Ross remained perfectly still, but Lisa could see the tension in her shoulders. Amy Collins gripped her tablet so tightly that her knuckles were white. None of them had expected this scenario during their months of preparation. The HFY had a reputation that spread fear across the galaxy. They were raiders and slavers who took entire populations for their labor camps. Their ships were built for one purpose: overwhelming any defense through sheer firepower. No one had ever successfully fought them off without massive losses. Council member Zixthura's skin had shifted to an orange color that Lisa's briefing said indicated curiosity mixed with concern. "This will be very educational," she said to the delegates around her. "We have never seen how humans respond to genuine existential threat." The other council members nodded their agreement. The floating tribunal representative pulsed with what looked like anticipation. Several delegates in the lower tiers activated their own recording devices. This was clearly going to be a moment they wanted to study later. Lisa pressed the transmission button and spoke in her carefully practiced diplomatic tone. "Captain Morrison, we have a developing situation. HFY raiders approaching the system. Please advise on defensive options." Jake's voice came back through the speakers clear enough for everyone in the chamber to hear. But something was different about his tone. Gone was the formal military protocol he had used during all their previous communications with alien observers. "Copy that, Ambassador. How long do we need to keep up this whole song and dance routine?" Lisa blinked. That was not the response she had rehearsed. Around the chamber, alien delegates began murmuring to each other. Their translators were working overtime to make sense of Jake's casual tone and unfamiliar phrases. "Captain, please clarify your previous transmission," Lisa said, trying to get the conversation back on track. "The HFY fleet, Lisa. 300-plus ships heading straight for New Denver Colony. 40,000 civilians who are about to become slaves if we don't do something about it. So I'm asking, how much longer do we need to pretend we're just a bunch of peaceful explorers?" The chamber erupted in whispered conversations. Lisa could see confusion on alien faces throughout the amphitheater. This human captain was talking like he had been pretending to be something he was not. "Chairman." Verdash raised one clawed hand for silence. "Captain Morrison, please explain what you mean by pretending." There was a pause before Jake answered, and when he did, his voice carried a tone that none of the aliens had heard from humans before. It was cold and professional in a way that had nothing to do with diplomacy. "Well, sir, with respect, we've been flying in pretty parade formations and keeping our weapons powered down for 8 months while your people decided whether we were civilized enough to join your club. But right now there are 40,000 human civilians about to die. And frankly, I don't give a damn about protocol anymore." Lisa felt the situation slipping away from her control. Every carefully planned scenario was falling apart. She looked at Colonel Ross, who gave her a slight nod. They had trained for this possibility, even though they had hoped it would never happen. "Captain Morrison," Lisa said, and her own voice began to change. The diplomatic smoothness was still there, but underneath it was something harder. "What is your assessment of the threat level?" "Extreme. The HFY don't negotiate and they don't take prisoners. Every person on New Denver Colony will be dead or in chains within 6 hours unless we stop them." Dr. Watson stepped forward, his scientific calm beginning to crack. "Captain, surely there must be some way to resolve this peacefully." "Perhaps. We could attempt communication." Jake's laugh came through the speakers, and it was not a pleasant sound. "Doc, these are the same bastards who turned the Centauri colonies into glass. They don't want to talk. They want to kill anyone who fights back and enslave everyone else." The alien delegates were now talking openly among themselves. This was clearly not the behavior they had expected from the peaceful, rule-following humans. Lisa could see concern on many faces, and what might have been fear on others. Zixtara stood up in her seat, all 6 arms gesturing as she spoke. "Captain Morrison, your species has presented itself as committed to nonviolence. Are you now saying this was deception?" Another pause, longer this time. When Jake answered, his voice was steady but carried an edge that made several aliens shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Ma'am, my species is committed to protecting innocent people. We prefer to do that peacefully. But when someone shows up with 300 warships planning to murder and enslave 40,000 civilians, peaceful stops being an option." The main screen updated to show the human escort fleet, which had maintained perfect formations throughout the diplomatic presentations. But now something was happening. Ships that had been flying in neat, predictable patterns were beginning to spread out. Their movements were becoming less parade-like and more purposeful. "Captain," Lisa said, and now her diplomatic mask was beginning to slip entirely. "Please confirm your tactical assessment." Tactical assessment is that we're about to find out. What happens when someone threatens human civilians while we're trying to be polite? Jake's voice carried a grim satisfaction. "All ships, this is Morrison. Prepare for combat operations." I repeat, prepare for combat operations. The change in the human fleet was immediate and dramatic. Ships that had appeared to be simple escort vessels suddenly began reconfiguring themselves. Weapon ports that had been sealed or hidden slid open. Armor plating shifted to cover vulnerable areas. The very shape of some ships seemed to change as they transformed from peaceful explorers into something entirely different. "Colonel." Ross stepped up to the communication console beside Lisa, Her carefully practiced, peaceful expression was gone, replaced by something that made several nearby aliens take a step back. Captain Morrison, you are authorized to engage hostile forces. Protect New Denver colony at all costs. Finally, Jake's voice came back, and the relief in it was clear too. Everyone listening. All ships, this is Morrison. Polite mode is officially disabled. Show these Kethver what happens when they threaten our people. The council chamber fell completely silent as the meaning of those words sank in. Polite mode. The humans had been operating in some kind of restricted behavioral setting this entire time. Lisa turned to face the assembled aliens, and her transformation was as dramatic as that of the ships outside. Gone was the careful diplomat who had spent months showing humanity's peaceful nature. In her place stood someone who looked like she had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. Honored Council, she said, and her voice now carried an authority that filled the chamber. You wanted to see how humanity handles a crisis. You're about to get your answer. Lisa stood straighter as she faced the council chamber, and every alien in the amphitheater could see that something fundamental had changed about her. The careful diplomat who had spent months demonstrating humanity's peaceful nature was gone. In her place was someone who looked like she had been wearing a mask for far too long. For 8 months, Lisa said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. We have shown you exactly what you wanted to see. Humans who follow rules. Humans who ask permission. Humans who solve every problem through careful discussion and diplomatic compromise. On the main viewing screen, the human escort fleet continued its transformation. Ships that had looked like peaceful research vessels were revealing weapon systems that made several council members shift uneasily in their seats. The neat parade formations had dissolved into something that looked far more dangerous. That was humanity with its polite mode enabled, Lisa continued. We learned very early in our galactic surveys that most civilizations prefer to deal with species that are predictable and non-threatening. So we gave you exactly what you expected to see. Dr. Watson stepped forward, and his entire demeanor had changed. Gone was the gentle scientist who had explained human achievements in medicine and agriculture. The research stations we showed you, he said in a voice that was now cold and analytical, they're also military installations. The agricultural advances we're so proud of, they were developed to support long-term military campaigns in hostile environments. Colonel Ross activated a control panel that Lisa had not even noticed before. The walls of the chamber suddenly filled with new holographic displays, but these were nothing like the peaceful images they had shown earlier. These showed human military installations, weapon testing facilities, and fleet deployments that were far larger than anything the Council had been told about. Every human colony has defensive systems that could level a moon, Ross said matter-of-factly. Every exploration ship carries enough firepower to destroy a space station. Every human citizen receives military training from childhood. We didn't lie to you about any of this. We just didn't mention it. The alien delegates erupted in panicked conversations. Chairman Vordash stood up from his seat, his lizard features twisted in what might have been anger or fear. You deliberately deceived this council for months. You presented false information about your military capabilities. No, Lisa said, and her voice cut through the noise like a blade. We presented accurate information about our peaceful capabilities. We just didn't tell you about our other capabilities. There's a difference. On the screen, Jake's fleet was now in full combat configuration. Ships that the Council had been told were carrying 20 vessels suddenly revealed 40 more ships, decloaking from stealth positions. The transformation was so complete that it was hard to believe these were the same vessels that had been flying peaceful escort missions just minutes before. Amy Collins, who had been silent throughout the presentation, now spoke for the first time. Her voice carried the same hard edge as the others. Did you really think we would come to you defenseless? Did you think we would reveal all our capabilities to strangers while asking for permission to join their organization? Zixthoras' skin had shifted to deep red, which Lisa's briefing said indicated extreme agitation. Your species has been lying to us from the moment of first contact. Our species has been surviving, Lisa replied. We studied every member of this council for decades before we made contact. We know that the hegemony conquered 12 species in the last century. We know that the tribunal strips mining rights from planets without asking the inhabitants. We know that the Federation has never once voted to help a species defend itself against raiders. The accusations hung in the air like poison. Several council members tried to speak at once, but Lisa continued over their protests. So yes, we showed you our best face first. We demonstrated that we could be peaceful neighbors who follow rules and contribute to galactic civilization. But we never said that was all we were capable of. The battle display updated to show the Kethver fleet, which was now close enough for detailed scans. 312 warships, exactly as Chairman Verdish had said. They were arranged in the standard Kethver attack formation designed to overwhelm defenses through concentrated firepower. Jake's voice came through the speakers again, and now it carried a tone that made several aliens step backward. All ships, target acquisition complete. We have eyes on the entire Kethver battle group. Weapons are hot and tracking, waiting for a final go order. Lisa looked directly at Chairman Verdash. You want to see how humanity handles a crisis? Watch and learn. She turned to the communication console and spoke in a voice that none of the aliens recognized as belonging to the diplomatic species they thought they had been dealing with. Captain Morrison, you are weapons free. Protect New Denver. Colony, no survivors. Copy that, Ambassador. No survivors? All ships, this is Morrison. Engage, engage. The transformation of the human fleet was immediate and terrifying. Ships that had been cruising peacefully through space suddenly accelerated to speeds that should have been impossible. Weapons that had been hidden fired in coordinated volleys that lit up space like a deadly light show. But what shocked the council most was the communication chatter coming from the human ships. Gone was any pretense of military formality. The humans were talking to each other like old friends who had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. Steve, take your squadron around their left flank. These bastards are using the same formation they used at Centauri. Copy that, Bill. My boys are hungry after 8 months of parade duty. Remember, people, these are the same scumbags who killed those colonists last year. Make them pay for it. Dr. Watson noticed the aliens' shocked expressions as the battle chatter continued. You should understand, he said conversationally. Humans have been tracking Kethver movements for years. We know exactly who they are and what they've done to innocent people across the galaxy. The main screen showed the first engagement between human and Kethver ships. What the Council witnessed defied everything they thought they knew about both species. The Kethver, who were feared across the galaxy for their ruthless efficiency, found themselves completely outmatched. Human ships moved with a coordination that spoke of endless training and combat experience. Every tactical maneuver demonstrated not just skill, but the kind of refined combat doctrine that came from fighting many battles against many different enemies. Colonel, Ross pointed to the tactical display. The Kethver use brute force tactics because they've never faced serious opposition. But humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We've learned things about combat that most species can't even imagine. The battle was not even close. Human ships tore through Kethver formations like they were made of paper. Advanced alien warships that had terrorized the galaxy for decades were being systematically destroyed by a species that had claimed to be Peaceful Explorers. Council member Zixthara stared at the display in shock. This level of military coordination, this tactical sophistication. Your species has been preparing for war this entire time, Lisa smiled, and it was not a diplomatic expression. Our species has been preparing for everything, Council member. Peace, war, exploration, trade, diplomacy, and yes, the complete destruction of anyone who threatens innocent people. The Kethver fleet, which had begun the engagement with over 300 ships, was already down to less than 200. Human casualties were 0. Amy Collins checked her tablet and looked up at the assembled aliens. The battle should be over within 2 hours. After that, the Kethver will no longer be a problem for anyone in this sector. Chairman Verdish found his voice at last. Your species. What are you? Lisa looked at him with eyes that held no trace of the diplomatic mask she had worn for 8 months. We're human. And you just learned what that really means. The council chamber had fallen into a stunned silence broken only by the sounds of battle coming through the communication system. On the main viewing screen, human ships moved through space with a deadly grace that made every alien representative question everything they thought they knew about warfare. The Kethver had been reduced to less than 100 ships in the first hour of fighting. Their standard tactics, which had worked against every other species they had encountered, were useless against an enemy that seemed to anticipate their every move. How? Whispered the floating tribunal representative, its light pulsing with what might have been fear. How is this possible? Dr. Watson stepped forward, and his transformation from peaceful scientist to military analyst was complete. You're asking the wrong question. You should be asking why we made it look so easy. The tactical display showed human ships executing maneuvers that violated several supposed laws of space combat. They were fighting in perfect coordination across hundreds of thousands of kilometers of space, sharing targeting data and tactical information in real time. The answer, Watson continued, is that humanity has been fighting wars since before we learned to build cities. We fought wars on land, at sea, in the air, and now in space. We fought against enemies with superior technology, superior numbers, and superior positioning. And we've learned to win anyway. Commander Steve Parker's voice came through the speakers as his squadron eliminated another group of Kethver ships. Delta Squadron, clean sweep on Sector 7. These guys fight like amateurs. Have they ever faced real opposition before? Captain Jake Morrison's reply carried grim satisfaction. Negative, Steve. Intelligence reports show they've been bullying civilian populations in poorly defended colonies for decades. They've never fought anyone who could shoot back effectively. The council members looked at each other with growing alarm. The humans were not just defeating the Kethver. They were analyzing their tactics in real time and finding them wanting. Lisa noticed their expressions and decided to explain. You see, the Kethver have been successful because they only attack targets that can't defend themselves. They're bullies, not warriors, but humans. We've spent our entire evolutionary history dealing with things that wanted to kill us. Colonel Ross activated another display that showed images from Earth's history. The aliens saw humans fighting against predators that were bigger, faster, and stronger than they were. They saw tactical innovations that allowed small groups to defeat much larger forces. Every human child learns about warfare from the moment they can understand stories, Ross explained. We study battles that happened thousands of years ago, because the lessons are still valid. We've been refining the art of combat for our entire existence as a species. The battle continued to rage on the screen, but it was becoming clear that this was not really a battle at all. It was an execution. Human ships moved with the confidence of predators that had found their prey. Amy Collins looked up from her tablet with a grim smile. Kethver fleet is now down to 67 operational vessels. Human casualties remain at 0. Estimated time to complete victory, 43 minutes. Zixthora-S skin had shifted through several colors before settling on. A pale white that Lisa's briefing said indicated shock. Your species ... You planned this, all of it. You knew the Kethver would come. We've been tracking Kethver movements for 3 years, Lisa admitted. We knew they had been scouting our colonies. We knew they would eventually attack. So we prepared. But your presentation, Chairman Verdash protested. Your claims about peaceful exploration and diplomatic solutions were all true, Lisa replied. We do prefer peaceful exploration. We do believe in diplomatic solutions. But we also believe in being prepared for when diplomacy fails. The communication chatter from the human fleet continued to reveal aspects of their nature that the Council had never suspected. The humans were not just fighting, they were enjoying it. Bill, your boys are letting too many escape. Clean up your sectors. Copy that, Steve. Sorry, we were having too much fun playing. With them, remember people, we want to send a message here. Anyone who threatens human civilians needs to understand what happens next. Dr. Watson noticed the aliens' horrified expressions. You need to understand something about human psychology. We are persistence hunters by nature. When we decide that something needs to die, we don't stop until it's dead. And when someone threatens our families, our children, our innocent civilians, we don't just want them dead. We want them to serve as an example to others. The Kethver fleet was now down to 30 ships, and those were trying desperately to escape. But human ships had surrounded the entire battle area. Nothing was getting out alive. Captain Morrison's voice came through the speakers again. All ships, remember the rules of engagement. No prisoners, no survivors, no mercy. These bastards have killed too many innocent people to deserve anything less. Council member Zixthara stood up, all 6 arms trembling. This is genocide. You're not just defeating them. You're eliminating their entire species. Lisa turned to her with eyes that held no warmth at all. The Kethver eliminated 17 entire civilizations. Billions of innocent people died screaming in their slave camps. Today that ends forever. But the ethical implications, protested the tribunal representative. Surely there must be some way to ... To what? Colonel Ross interrupted. To capture them so they can escape and do this again in a few years? To negotiate with a species that has never honored a treaty? To show mercy to beings who have shown none to anyone else? The tactical display updated again. 15 Kethver ships remained, and they were being systematically hunted down by human squadrons that moved like Wolf packs. Amy Collins consulted her tablet. Intelligence estimates that we've eliminated approximately 97% of all Kethver military assets in this engagement. The remaining 3% are scattered raiders in other sectors who will be dealt with over the next few months. The implications of that statement hit the council like a physical blow. The humans had not just defended against this attack. They had planned the complete elimination of the Kethver as a threat to anyone, anywhere. Dr. Watson saw their shock and continued his explanation. You have to understand human thinking. When we identify something as a threat to innocent people, we don't just address the immediate problem. We eliminate the threat permanently. But how did you know? Chairman Vardash asked. How did you anticipate their tactics so perfectly? Because we've been studying warfare for thousands of years longer than they have, Lisa replied. The Kethver use tactics that human military academies would consider elementary. They rely on overwhelming force applied in predictable patterns. Against civilian populations, that works. Against humans, it's suicide. The last Kethver ship exploded on the screen, and suddenly the space around Earth was clear of hostile forces. The battle that had terrified the Council as an unstoppable threat had lasted exactly 1 hour and 37 minutes. All ships. This is Morrison. Threat eliminated. All human vessels report 0 casualties, 0 damage. Returning to normal patrol patterns. The human fleet began to reconfigure itself again, returning to the peaceful escort formations they had maintained before the battle. But now every alien in the chamber knew that this peaceful appearance was just another mask. Lisa turned back to face the council, and her diplomatic smile had returned. But now it looked different. Now it looked like the smile of a predator that was choosing to be friendly. Now then, she said pleasantly, shall we continue with our membership application? The silence in the council chamber stretched on for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. 300 alien representatives stared at the tactical display showing empty space where the Kethver fleet had been. The debris field that remained was already being cleaned up by human ships that moved with the same terrifying efficiency they had shown in combat. Chairman Verdash was the first to find his voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. In 97 minutes, you eliminated a threat that has plagued this galaxy for centuries. Lisa nodded pleasantly, her diplomatic mask firmly back in place. The Kethver were certainly persistent, but they were not particularly innovative in their approach to warfare. Overwhelming force works well against unprepared civilian targets. but it has significant weaknesses when applied against a prepared military response. Dr. Watson activated a new holographic display that showed statistical analysis of the battle. The HFY used the same tactical formations they've employed for the past 50 years. Their weapon systems were designed for intimidation rather than actual combat effectiveness. Their ship configurations prioritize speed over maneuverability or defensive capability. Colonel Ross added her own analysis. Essentially, they were excellent at bullying civilians but completely unprepared to fight against anyone who could fight back. Most human military academies would classify their approach as amateur level. The alien delegates began talking among themselves in hushed tones. Words like terrifying, deception, and dangerous could be heard through various translation systems. Several representatives were already activating their personal communication devices, presumably to warn their home governments. Council member Zixthara stood up, her skin cycling through colors that Lisa's briefing suggested indicated severe emotional distress. You lied to us. For 8 months, you presented yourselves as a peaceful species interested in scientific cooperation and cultural exchange. We presented ourselves as a species capable of peaceful cooperation, Lisa corrected gently. Every statement we made was factually accurate. We do value scientific advancement. We do appreciate cultural exchange. We do prefer diplomatic solutions to problems. We simply didn't mention that we're also extremely good at warfare. Amy Collins stepped forward with her tablet. If I may, Council member, our psychological profiles of various Federation species indicated that leading with our military capabilities would result in immediate rejection of our membership application. Most galactic civilizations have negative reactions to species that emphasize their combat effectiveness during first contact. So you chose to deceive us instead, the tribunal representative pulsed with what looked like anger. We chose to emphasize the aspects of our nature that we thought you would find most appealing, Dr. Watson replied. Every species does this during diplomatic negotiations. The difference is that most species don't have as much to hide as we do. Chairman Vertish leaned forward in his seat. What else haven't you told us? What other capabilities are you concealing? Lisa exchanged glances with her team members. Colonel Ross gave a slight nod, and Dr. Watson shrugged in a way that suggested they had already passed the point of no return. Our industrial capacity is roughly 40 times larger than what we reported, Lisa said matter-of-factly. Our population is 3 times the official figure because we didn't count military personnel or off-world colonies. Our space fleet includes about 12,000 vessels that we classified as research stations or civilian transports but are actually warships. The numbers hit the Council like physical blows. Several representatives gasped, and at least one delegate appeared to be having what humans would recognize as a panic attack. Our technological capabilities are similarly understated, Dr. Watson continued. The defensive systems we mentioned for asteroid protection? They're actually weapons platforms capable of destroying battleships. The research station's studying stellar phenomena? They're monitoring every ship movement within 50 light-years of Earth. Amy Collins consulted her tablet. We also have intelligence networks operating in most major galactic civilizations, including detailed military assessments of every species represented on this council. The implications of that statement caused an uproar. Dozens of aliens began shouting questions and accusations in their native languages. The translation system struggled to keep up with the flood of angry words. Colonel Ross waited for the noise to die down before speaking. You should understand that none of this was intended as a threat to the Federation or its member species. Our intelligence gathering and military preparations were focused entirely on entities like the HFY that pose threats to civilian populations. How are we supposed to trust anything you say? Zixthara demanded, her skin now a deep purple. That suggested rage. You've admitted to systematic deception for months. Lisa's expression became more serious, though she maintained her calm tone. Council member, with respect, trust is something that develops over time through consistent actions. We've shown That we can be peaceful neighbors who contribute to galactic civilization. We've also shown you what happens to anyone who threatens innocent people while we're watching. She gestured toward the viewing screen where human ships continued their patrol patterns around Earth. The question isn't whether you can trust us to be peaceful. The question is whether you can trust us to do what we say we'll do. Dr. Watson stepped forward. Our actions against the HFY demonstrate that when we commit to protecting someone, we follow through completely. When we say we want to contribute to galactic science and culture, we mean it. When we say we prefer diplomatic solutions, that's also true. But when we say we'll defend innocent people against aggressors, you can be absolutely certain that we will. The debate that followed was heated and chaotic. Some council members argued that humanity's deception disqualified them from Federation membership. Others pointed out that the humans had never actually lied, only emphasized certain truths, while downplaying others. The floating tribunal representative pulsed with agitation. Your species has shown a capacity for violence that exceeds anything in our historical records. How can we allow such a dangerous civilization into our organization? Colonel, Ross answered with military directness. Because that dangerous civilization just eliminated a threat that your organization has been unable to deal with for 50 years. In less than 2 hours, we solved a problem that has cost billions of lives across multiple star systems. Amy Collins looked up from her tablet. The preliminary casualty reports from New Denver Colony are coming in. 0 civilian deaths, 0 infrastructure damage. The HFY never got close enough to threaten the colony itself. Chairman Verdash stood slowly, his reptilian features showing what might have been deep thought. You're saying that your capacity for violence is actually a tool for protecting innocent life. That's exactly what we're saying, Lisa replied. Humans learned long ago that the only way to protect peaceful people is to be better at warfare than those who would harm them. We don't fight because we enjoy it. We fight because someone has to, and we're very good at it. The discussion continued for hours. Council members from different species debated the implications of humanity's revealed nature. Some argued that such a militaristic species would inevitably become aggressive toward other Federation members. Others pointed out that humans had shown remarkable restraint and had only acted when civilian lives were directly threatened. Council member Zixthara finally stood again, her skin now a more neutral green color. I have reviewed the battle footage multiple times. The HFY have been a plague on this galaxy for generations. 3 separate Federation fleets have attempted to stop their raiding operations and all failed with massive casualties. She paused, looking directly at Lisa. These humans eliminated them completely with 0 losses. 0. That level of tactical superiority suggests military capabilities far beyond anything we've seen from any species. The tribunal representative pulsed thoughtfully. The question becomes whether such capabilities represent a threat to galactic peace or a guarantee of it. Dr. Watson activated a final holographic display showing human colonies throughout the solar system. If I may, honored representatives, consider our actual behavior rather than our capabilities. We have the power to conquer worlds, but we build research stations. We have weapons that could destroy cities, but we use them to clear asteroid hazards. We have fleets that could blockade star systems, but we use them to escort your delegations safely through space. The choice, Lisa added, is not whether to admit a species with dangerous capabilities. The choice is whether to admit a species that uses those capabilities responsibly. The final vote took place 3 hours later. It was not, as originally planned, a simple up or down decision on Federation membership. Instead, the Council faced 3 options: reject humanity entirely, admit them as junior members with restricted privileges, or offer them immediate full membership with a seat on the Security Council. When the votes were tallied, the result surprised everyone, including the human delegation. Humanity was not only admitted to the Federation but was offered the first new permanent seat on the Security Council in over 2 centuries.